Bitcoiners, it's your boy CK, and I just had an amazing conversation with Louis Liu of Mimesis Capital, the founder, CEO, CIO of Mimesis. And I met Louis actually 2019 at BitBlockBoom. We had a great conversation about Bitcoin in China and what's happening in China. And we later went and met and had a meal in New York City. At the time, he was working at Block Tower Capital. Almost a year later from having dinner with him, the COVID pandemic kind of like started getting for real. And he was out of the US. He went to Taiwan and he founded Mimesis Capital, a Bitcoin denominated fund, an organization that is investing in Bitcoin, trying to outperform Bitcoin. And they have a long-term mindset, and they're investing in the best companies in the Bitcoin space: Swan Bitcoin, Unchained Capital, so much more. Mimesis is involved in the root and the core of the Bitcoin space today. And Louis is so young and just has such a vision for scarcity, for art, for mathematics, for truth, and everything that is, counterculture in this fiat world that we live in. I think you guys are really going to enjoy this podcast. I think you guys are going to learn a lot from this podcast, and I hope that you're inspired by Louis. Again, a good friend of mine. I hope to have him back onto the show again, and I cannot wait to see him again in person. Hopefully, he can make it to Bitcoin 2022. But until then, enjoy this podcast with Louis of Mimesis Capital. Bitcoiners, welcome back to another episode of the Bitcoin Magazine podcast. I have a very special guest sitting in front of me, an old friend, a friend I met in Dallas, BitBlockBoom 2019. And we are finally doing a podcast together. Since meeting, he's jumped around at different funds and has started an incredibly interesting fund, Mimesis Capital, probably one of the coolest names in the Bitcoin fund space. Louis Liu, welcome to the podcast.
Pleasure to be here, CK. It's been a long time. I believe we met in BitBlockBoom, the first BitBlockBoom event, and that was a phenomenal one.
Yeah, I think that was the second BitBlockBoom, but it was the first one that was like kind of mainstream, that like all the Bitcoiners were going to it. But I feel like it was such a special event because it was the bear market. It was the depth. Everyone there just cared about Bitcoin.
Yeah, I believe the Bitcoin was trading around 5K, right?
Yeah, I mean, 5K Bitcoin and no Dogecoiners, no shitcoiners, no get rich quickers. It was like just the people who cared. And like I shook Saifedean's hand. I got him to sign a book for me. I shook Jimmy Song's hand, got him to sign a book for me. It's like, this is the stuff that's going down in Bitcoin legacy, right? And at that dinner the night of the event, that's when we got to meet. And I ended up talking to you for like 3 or 4 hours just because you had so much connection and experience with what's happening in Asia in Bitcoin, right? Yeah. And that's really what sparked my interest. Louis, I mean, why don't you kind of just introduce yourself? Like, who is Louis? How did you discover Bitcoin? How did you end up where you are today?
So I really started digging into Bitcoin when I was, studying abroad in US, high school, and then just dive into it. I was looking at different, cryptocurrency, but I realized Bitcoin has a lot of educational material online. I think in previous time on Reddit, and then it moved on to the Twitter. So I studied a lot of that, and I realized, Bitcoin is such a special cryptocurrency compared to other. And I met so many people like you, CK, the Bitcoiner in the space. So I realized, Bitcoin is the hard money, better than gold, better than any asset, that I have invested in. My investment career started when I was 14 years old. That's when I started investing. And I just, so much curiosity about the financial world. I used to, look at Wall Street Journal, CNBC News. That's how I discovered Bitcoin in my high school time. I just read something about Silk Road and Bitcoin pop up. and I read it and I fell into the rabbit hole. And then in college, started working for a family office based in New York, basically helping them deal sourcing about the Bitcoin project around space. And later on, I joined a cryptocurrency hash fund called Block Tower. Was there for half year, and then I moved on during the COVID time. I started Mimesis Capital. That's just years ago, and that was an incredible time to start something because if the market is tanking, not just Bitcoin market, but the overall market. Here we are. So we are expanding our team and focus on Bitcoin denominated strategy, and started with very root of family office, because I had this experience at family office world, also hedge fund world, crypto hedge fund, and I realized it's such a good match together, and we can be our only capital, and starting to do this Bitcoin investment, which a lot of traditional financial people even now are still hesitant to go into or invest in Bitcoin and only Bitcoin, right? They want to diversify crypto portfolio, which I believe is completely nonsense. So our fund, Mimesis Capital, we start with Bitcoin. We're doing treasury management for our own business, basically like MicroStrategy, but private version. We convert basically all of our cash and also income into Bitcoin, and we just started, just like any tab in the Bitcoin space, we DCA it, right? And and I also invest in startups, Bitcoin startups like On-Chain Capital, Swan Bitcoin, Satoshi Energy, Foundation Device, and recently Embryo. So I talk to a lot of Bitcoin entrepreneur, which they kind of inspire me, to become entrepreneur myself. Yeah, that's my journey into Bitcoin. It has been quite a lot of fun.
So I want to tease out what primed you to understand Bitcoin at such a young age, right? Because I feel like most people who got into Bitcoin, even to this point, they were primed, right? They had some sort of how do you say it? Previous experience that enabled them to understand Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is just so strange, right? Bitcoin's this really strange thing. So you understood Bitcoin at a very young age, and I'm just kind of curious, what was it that helped you get it?
I believe when I was start investing, my school of thought is about volume investing, right? Dig into the fundamental, analyzing balance sheet, income statement, cash flow statement. That's when I began my journey in investing. I never believe in speculation, stuff without fundamental. I always do fundamental analysis first, and then look at different things that connect the dots. I think I built quite a foundation for my investment philosophy. That's when I came across Bitcoin and compared that to other cryptocurrency, I realized Bitcoin has more robust fundamental and cryptographic than what others are trying to present. I wasn't really a Bitcoiner starting my journey into Bitcoin, right? That's when in the bear market, everybody had that kind of like journey down to a rabbit hole. You start with Bitcoin and you see other cryptocurrency, and you analyze it and you realize, okay, Bitcoin is a different project than the other altcoins, shitcoins out there. So that's how I realized, okay, Bitcoin, from this fundamental standpoint, from this cryptographic technology standpoint, and decentralization, it's just completely different project. That's why I try me to focus on Bitcoin rather than other. And that also makes sense in terms of investment strategy. Because if Bitcoin in 12 years time always been the top one, right? In terms of market cap, there's no other reason to diversify other, and you want to be concentrate on the right investment other than some speculation going on in the shitcoin space. Um, yeah,
I mean, that makes sense. And, I feel like a lot of value investors turn out to be Bitcoiners. So I'm not that surprised that that's your foundation. And part of that too is like realizing that value investors are probably the first people that see like, wow, everything is broken. Like only momentum traders are making money. Like everything is too expensive. There must be something more to it, right? Like that's kind of like Preston Pish's story too, right? So again, I'm not surprised that that's the case for you as well. Like what helped you realize that the money is broken, right? It's not, it's not just about creating a new kind of money, but like the money that we have right now, it doesn't work.
Yeah. So I think when I saw Bill Miller, which is one of the great volume investor in the space, he bought Bitcoin quite early on, right? And I think his average price is around $300, which is amazing. And I listened to his podcast. I listened to the writing he has done on Bitcoin. I think he's spot on as a volume investor. He's spot on where this volume coming from Bitcoin. And I think they're just couple one, right? I think the decentralization itself is powerful technology, and the network effect as well. And also, as Bitcoin price goes up, it becomes more valuable. It becomes more, accessible to a lot of investors in the world because of liquidity increase, also the security increase. So a lot of that stuff, traditional volume investor won't be thinking about. That is the fundamental analysis that they will be doing, right? They want to do some cash flow. So this is not a stuff they were looking at. But by looking at Bitcoin in the different metrics, the network effect, the security, the hash rate, and also the nodes connected to the Bitcoin, you really need to dive deep enough to realize there's so much value that Bitcoin can bring to the humanity that any other tech companies around, like Google, Facebook, even Tesla. I think Bitcoin is much more valuable than all those companies combined because it's the base layer of the 21st century monetary system. And I think we are pretty much underestimate where this valuation could go. Because you're not actually investing in a company, you actually invest in the money that has the technology aspect and pretty much disrupting the legacy financial system and the fiat currency system as well. And I don't think there's any other technology that is bigger than this. So from a volume investing standpoint, I think the valuation of Bitcoin, you cannot really pinpoint where the valuation could be at. But if you're looking at the $10 trillion gold market cap, and you're printing that $100 trillion bond market, I think we are heading in those $1 trillion market cap range. And I think as this move higher, it give investor more confident that this is a self-fulfilling prophecy. And really is, what I've been thinking about is, Bitcoin doesn't even change a lot in the past 12 years, unlike any, shitcoins out there. And that is an incredible value proposition because in the world of, fast changing, a lot of technology companies try to give more feature to the apps, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Apple, right? They always give more feature. But Bitcoin has done its most critical feature at the launch, which is the 21 million, right? which is the design, the architecture of the whole network. And I think people are starting to realize how valuable is that, and become, starting to reflect on the valuation, the market cap it represents.
Yeah, I think that's very good analysis, and it, like, Bitcoin is almost like the opposite of, everything that has been produced by, like, the fiat tech sector, right? The Silicon Valley led tech sector, even maybe like the Chinese tech sector, right? That is a huge tech sector as well, and it's kind of centered around surveillance and control, whereas, like, Bitcoin it's like not changing. You can't mess with it. It's decentralized. And, I would say Bitcoin's like a mirror. Like, whatever you think of Bitcoin, it will reflect back at you. And whatever you are, Bitcoin will reflect back at you. And, you have an incredible piece of art kind of behind you, that it's the mirror. Was this the number 7 Fractal Encrypt full node sculpture? Is that correct?
Yeah, this is number 7, and scarcity, right? There's only 10 pieces in the world, and I think this is only one in Taiwan.
Yeah, and the only one that's glass, correct? Or am I incorrect on that?
Yeah, only one. That I think
Or sorry, not
fractal.
glass, a mirror.
Yeah, yeah, a mirror.
So, I mean, to everyone who's listening to this on podcast, go to Bitcoin Magazine YouTube and watch the video. But behind Lewis is just Fractal Encrypt's amazing full node sculpture in a mirror form. So this is the same one that Michael Saylor has behind him when he podcasts, except that Michael Saylor's is made out of wood. So probably one of the most well-known pieces of Bitcoin art out there, and you definitely have a very special one. Can you talk about, you purchased this from the Miami art auction while you were in Taiwan. Can you just talk about, like, what it took to get this? Why did you pay such a handsome price for it, and why is it? Do you think it's just so special?
Yeah. So let's talk about. I think let's talk about scarcity. Start off, I think, doing the auction platform. I think that was a great experience. Before the auction, I deposited some Bitcoin through Lightning to be able to bid on the price. I think that is smooth. Go through the BTC Pay server via Lightning, and I have a Lightning wallet, so you just go through it, right? They don't need to verify who you are. There's no KYC process. You just verify your email address, and you can start bidding. I think the whole bidding experience is great. You just hit whatever the higher bid to the last bidder. Um, and I look at all the arts, and my family have been doing investing in art, collecting art for decades. And what strikes me about Bitcoin art is the culture, the apples, the cyberpunk, um, you know, culture that inspire me. So I love to own one. I love to own one. Yeah. So I
I
love to
only
own.
have Bitcoin art behind me.
Yeah. So we as a Bitcoiner and also as an art collector, I would love to own one that's scarce. Also represent the Bitcoin culture. So I look at Fractal's art, and I actually did a lot of research on the Bitcoin magazine. You guys published. I think Fractal published his design, his detailed explanation of how this art piece formed. I think it's incredible, right? I don't know there's artists in the traditional art space have spent so much time diving into the Bitcoin protocol, understand the math behind it, and spend time to design the beautiful pieces, the beautiful art actually, and have the scarcity mindset, right? Because the traditional artists, they kind of like when they become successful, they just keep producing, and which they value their art. It's quite smart that the Bitcoiner, you know, realizes scarcity and cap these pieces at 10. I mean, that's incredible smart. It's as marketing, and as well as keep these pieces scarce so the volume can go up over time. Um, I think this is really a representative of the whole Bitcoin culture, and it has to be expressed, through art. And I think Fractal get it, and his whole, um, personality is like pseudonymous, right? I never met him in person, and I don't know his full name, but it's okay, right? The art speaks itself, and and also collecting art is also about, you know who owns it. I think Michael Saylor owns it. That I think is pretty cool. And there are a bunch of, Jeff, another guy who is an intense bidder. Actually, quite happy that I get this from him because he's keep bidding on me, right? And I think the network of the collectors for Fractal is extremely robust. And that's also a very, very important aspect about art collecting. You want to plug into a network that is long-term believer of the artist, right? They're not going to sell it for, you know for just for speculation, just for trade. They want to collect it, and then they want to represent it in front of it, right? They are proud to own this. So I think that just create a great network for this art.
All right, let's take a quick break from that episode. I want to tell you guys about our sponsor. It is Bitcoin 2022 conference. I am sure you saw the videos. You may have been there in person. Bitcoin 2021 was an absolute smashing success. It was the biggest conference in Bitcoin history, crypto history, whatever history of the digital asset sphere. Bitcoin is number one, and the Bitcoin 2021 conference is number one with a bullet. It was an absolutely incredible time. I was working my ass off the whole time, but I got to meet so many incredible community members. And I think the best testament to how amazing Bitcoin 2021 was not just all of the amazing, accolades and compliments that I got personally and our team got, but also it's the skin in the game in Bitcoin 2022. We have already sold close to 1,500 tickets. That is more than 10% of the people, everyone who went to Bitcoin 2021 have already purchased tickets to Bitcoin 2022. We have not released a date. We have not released a city. We have not released anything. That is the biggest compliment. That is the biggest skin in the game of the community being down for this conference. Bitcoin 2022 is going to be bigger than Bitcoin 2021. It is going to be better than Bitcoin 21 in every single way. And we are going to be bringing you the best opportunity to mingle with the biggest, the baddest, the most Bitcoin people on the planet. So join the revolution. Go to b.tc/conference. Get your tickets today. I don't know what the ticket prices are. They are going up. I think they're $249 right now. We just rolled out fiat ticket purchases. All the tickets purchased before today were all purchased in BTC. So get it, guys. Get it. Get this ticket. Be at Bitcoin 2022. See you there. Bitcoiners, I want to tell you guys about The Deep Dive. The Deep Dive is a new premium newsletter from the Bitcoin Magazine team in conjunction with my man, BTCization, Dylan LeClaire. Dylan is such a multifaceted and wide-ranging analyst. He does everything from on-chain analytics to macro analysis to hash rate and all that kind of good stuff. He does it all. He breaks down everything that's happening every single day with his daily dive. He's going to dive into what is happening in the market that day. So that way you don't have to pay attention to Twitter. You don't have to pay attention to anything else. You can just pay attention to the deep dive, and he has you covered. And at the end of the week, guess what? You get a weekly recap. And at the end of the month, hey, we have a freaking report, a beautiful PDF breaking down all the activity of that entire month, what it means for Bitcoin, what you can expect moving forward. The Bitcoin market is going to moon. We are here to make sure that we maximize your stack. Go to members.bitcoinmagazine.com to sign up today. And if you use promo code BITS, you can get 1 month for free. So again, the deep dive, I've been checking it out every day, and you should too. Back to the show. Yeah, I mean, again, for any of the listeners who are unfamiliar with Fractal Encrypt, check them out on Twitter. Go to Bitcoin Magazine. I'm proud to have made that article happen where Fractal Encrypt, I believe he broke down all the details of the piece that was purchased by Michael Saylor. But your piece is special. It's the number 7. It's a mirror instead of wood, like I said, and I think Bitcoin is a mirror, so there's something representative about it. And there's also something representative about the number 7. There's a lot of kind of little Easter eggs with this piece of art. Can you kind of talk a little bit about them?
Yeah, I think number 7 itself is 7. The number 7, is biblical number, right? We know like God created the world in 7 days. So I think number 7 has this spirituality. And also, when this art piece getting, I bought this art piece when El Salvador, become the first country which, adopt Bitcoin as a legal tender. And I think that also is significant as well for this piece. With the exact same day when I bought it, it's the exact same day when El Salvador adopt Bitcoin, right? That is significant. And also the mirror itself just reflect what is in it, right? You can put it down, just right now, you can see it reflect my office. When you're standing in front of it, you can see it reflect yourself, right? And what you see is mirror. I think Thomas Schorley written this incredible piece about this, some money and some art. I think that's where the root of art should be, right? We should be dedicated our life skill set, with this some money mindset in the mind, just proof of work. I think Bitcoin is some money because of proof of work, right? You have to put into work in order to have the money, right? Same with art. I think art also represent that kind of idea, right? You have to put in a lot of work. I think Fractal put in a lot of work in this piece. That's why it inspires me to build it. Also inspire other artists as well that, oh, wow, you can actually have dedicated your life, dedicated your, skill into, developing, building an art piece that in later on inspire a lot of generation. You want to own such an art piece. I think number 7 is significant. The day when El Salvador announced Bitcoin legal tender is significant. It all comes together. And me and Fractal, we actually chat on Twitter. So it's quite special. When I bought it, the time is like 11:11, which is also the significant number that Fractal will have strong belief that this is all stars align, right? Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible. Again, I saw the piece in person in Miami, and it looks great in your office. You can kind of see a little bit of your office in the background, but it makes it look like it's like, caving in. But the thing that's interesting about Bitcoin is like, I feel like on the outside, into outsiders, like Bitcoin must seem like such a shallow thing to them. But like to people who fall down the rabbit hole, there's a reason to say that rabbit hole, like Bitcoin is so deep. And like there's so many like very core aspects of human history and human wisdom that are kind of like baked into this thing that's also built with math in mind and physics in mind and like all of these things that are intrinsic to the universe. It seems like just in its design, the fact that it exists, like it exudes this like truth to it. And obviously you've seen that truth. That's why you're so passionate and, you've become a leader in this space. But, I guess don't really have a question, but what's your reaction to that?
Reaction to the art?
No, but just my statement, just like this, like the truth that Bitcoin kind of, exudes, right? Like things about it just seemed aligned.
Yeah, I think Bitcoin like a mirror, right? Like this art, right? It kind of like reflects on a lot of core aspect of life, and that really inspires me because I myself I read a lot of philosophers essay, or I'm a big fan of Nietzsche, a big fan of Aristotle. I studied philosophy in college. Um, but that's not my major. But I really found out studying those things. I think there's this truth in life, and I think Bitcoin itself are reflecting those aspects. For example, my origin of investing is come from value investing. I think Bitcoin absolutely reflect what is the fundamental thing of for value investing. It's not actually looking at um, the numbers, right? It's actually have a sense of what is the true value of an asset. It doesn't need to be a cash flow statement. It doesn't need to be a balance sheet. I think people have been schooled in the traditional financial world where value investing just have to look at a couple of metrics like the PE ratio, cash flow. I think that all makes sense. But going back to the fundamental of value investing, I think you have to define value yourself. What is the definition of it? It shouldn't be the definition that's so restricted by the traditional thought. It should be coming from you and should be coming from the first principle. I think Bitcoin reflects that. I think Bitcoin also reflects about art collecting, right? You have a couple art gallery circle, auction circle. It's always the artists always want to plug into that circle. What I find about Bitcoin artists is that um, they fought their way, right? They stay true to themselves. I think that's quite important for any artist, not just Bitcoin artists, for any artist, reject the temptation of getting into some sort of market manipulation, right? And actually do great art. I think that's an important characteristic that the Bitcoin artists, especially Fractal, I think he get it. Um, and I think this is an important aspect for artists and developing, unique art. You don't want to just want to be famous just because you are promoted by gallery, promoted by the auction, you know, um, and that just come into the truth of what is art collecting, and same thing with what is the investing, right? It's just coming from the first principle. What do you think is valuable? Um, and the valuable thing requires most of the time, right? And you see what contemporary art is doing right now. A lot of artists, you know, doesn't do a lot of work in the art. They just have ideas, and then you see the banana, the banana tape on the wall. That just an idea. It's cool, but that does not require a lot of work. And are you going to collect that? No, it's not collectible because the banana is going to rot, right? That doesn't put a lot of work, but it definitely catches a lot of people's eyeball. But what the true art is actually, need to inspire people, need to inspire the generation, and and Bitcoin actually reflects that. Also the first principle of what is investing.
Again, I love that breakdown, and very, very beautiful kind of associations with art, scarcity, truth in nature. I want to pivot over to talking about Mimesis Capital. Invested in some of the best and most badass Bitcoin companies, the ones that don't care about necessarily altcoins or investors or a lot of the things that are in the typical VC circles. These are like the true Bitcoin companies, right? The Bitcoin denominated companies. The fund itself is Bitcoin denominated, and you brought the fund into existence at the depth of the bear market, the scariest time, right, when the world was falling apart. And David Bailey, the CEO of Bitcoin Magazine and BTC Inc., immediately recognized how clever your name was as well. So let's talk about Mimesis Capital, and let's dive into going from Block Tower to COVID craziness to starting this company.
Yeah. So I always think about from the first principle standpoint of what is investing. And my time at family office, cryptocurrency hedge fund really stopped me from doing what I love, right? Doing what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate in Bitcoin, but I just get distracted a lot, right? All the other projects they want me to look at, and the speculation they want me to dive in, but I just not built for it. That's why when you realize you're not type of person that will stay long in the speculation scheme, or people that you just associate with doesn't believe in what you believe, you move on. So that's the reason that I truly move on into the Bitcoin. Um, I think that's an incredible decision that I made during the time, because people will struggle between a job or start something that only you understood. Um, so that's my decision during the COVID 19 2020 pandemic, where it's the bear market, just everyone capitulated. Um, and the reason I taken that point to start is because I saw this transition coming in the micro environment. Where Paul Tudor Jones talk about it a lot, Michael Saylor talk about it a lot. Is the money printing happening, the monetary expansion um, that's that's happening during the COVID time, that makes me wanted to start this cap, because when things go sour, is always the best time you create and build um, you know uh, a, a company, right? I found that it's a great time to start something, and the Mimesis Capital really you know started at that the deepest bear market, and I find um, it very rewarding to think about that. Um, so our strategy is pretty much, like I said before, it's just a private version of micro strategy. We convert cash to Bitcoin. That's where we started the thesis. And why concentration that on Bitcoin is because Bitcoin is a store of value, and how you're gonna hedge against the monetary inflation that's happening across the globe, not just the Federal Reserve, but the ECB, the Japanese Central Bank, also China, right? You need something that you can hold on to store value in time, right? Um, and also thinking about my family, how I can help my family to hedge in this incredible time. How can we navigate through this difficult time when business getting shut down, when the COVID time, you can run the business, right? Only the tech company can run sort of in, but what about traditional business? What about restaurant? What about other companies that depend not depend on tech, but depend on human interaction, right? That all gets shut down. And you need to survive. I think Bitcoin during the COVID-19 period, we still have that going on right now, right? It's just incredible investment that could potentially save you from the darkest time. That's what we have experienced at Mimesis Capital, and what we have seen throughout these years. Um, and that we don't want to invest associated with any altcoin or shitcoin in the cryptocurrency space, because we don't see that as incredible tool to store value for a long time. And we focus on long-term investment, not short-term speculation. And that's also tied to my, venture capital investment in the Bitcoin space, where I saw, those when those Bitcoin companies try to raise money during the bear market, they struggle. And I find that struggle beautiful, because if you don't struggle early on, how you can succeed, right? I think Bitcoin are equipped with that, right? They believe in something, right? And they struggle through it. They can't grind it out. And you see on-chain capital getting a big fundraising from United. But 2 years ago, they couldn't done that, right? It's because of belief that they see in Bitcoin, the value proposition that they see in Bitcoin, is where that lead to the success. And that's part of the investment thesis that we have um, carry on. It's just that we don't follow a lot of VC circles. We don't follow A16Z. We do our own analysis. We do our own due diligence. There's a phrase famous in the Bitcoin world where don't trust, verify, right? So we did a lot of analysis on those company, research, talking to the founder. That's why we see those companies are really special because they don't give a fuck about the VC circle, right? Obviously, they need fundraising, but if the investor doesn't align with the mission, with the belief, they can say no, right? I think that's a power. Also, I think that's a dedication to the company mission. I think that's very very valuable because you don't want to be compromised by a lot of money that the investor going to flush right in your face. You want to say no because the investor does not align with your mission statement. That's just a very critical point, and that's how you can build a good company culture. And that just tell you how the entrepreneur, the leadership is looking like. So the company that I invested in, whether it's on-chain capital, Swan Bitcoin, Satoshi Energy, they all encrypted this kind of mindset, right? They believe in Bitcoin. They think Bitcoin has much more to be done, right? On top of the base layer, there's a lot to be built, but you don't have to build with tokens. You don't have to build with speculation, right? You can build real products, real company, real culture. But you just have to avoid the temptation, right? And I think that's incredible. By seeing that throughout the years right now, it's very rewarding. It's very, I would say, amazing to see those companies grow. And now you can see those are you know, the absolutely most important company in the Bitcoin ecosystem.
Before we get back to the episode, I want to tell you guys about Bitcoin Magazine. Bitcoin Magazine is the oldest publication covering Bitcoin, and we've been covering Bitcoin since 2012. Y'all, I'm so proud to be working for Bitcoin Magazine. We spend all day trying to scour the internet for the top news, the top plebs, the top subjects, conversations, everything that has to do with BTC, the asset, BTC, the culture, BTC, the revolution. We are here for it. We are here for BTC and BTC only, and we want to give back to the Bitcoin community. Hit us up if you want to contribute. And go follow us on Twitter. Go subscribe to this podcast. Go follow us on YouTube. All of the places that you can find Bitcoin Magazine, we are there. Instagram, Reddit, everywhere. We're there. We're there. Follow us for the best Bitcoin knowledge. Back to the episode. Yeah, and talking about the struggle and emerging from that, like that's something I can relate to at BTC Inc. and getting through the COVID pandemic and canceling Bitcoin 2020 and having to, pioneer and make Bitcoin 2021 actually happen as one of the first events in the world and in the US to happen in person in a major event, kind of during this COVID era. And there's something, you're right, it's beautiful. And there's something beautiful about saying no to cheap, easy money with strings attached to it, because odds are is like these businesses are cash flow positive. They're Satoshi positive. They have Bitcoin on their balance sheet, which is appreciating, and they don't have to bow down or say anything to anyone, and that's powerful. So it kind of makes the Bitcoin ecosystem more anti-fragile because, they kind of had to take the pain of not getting that easy money up front. And therefore they can continue to say F you to the A16Zs out there that, raise a fund without mentioning the word Bitcoin in it.
Yeah. And I want to add to that is that I think Bitcoin are the type of entrepreneur that I like, right? They don't compromise. And you always find money, right? You always find investor that, align with the mission. You just have to keep grinding, right? You cannot just, because ACCC has big money and compromise. I don't think that I don't think that leadership can build a good company culture. Um, and it's very interesting, you're talking about Bitcoin company as anti-fragile because they hold Bitcoin on a balance sheet. And the same thing happened to us at Mimesis Capital, where we hold Bitcoin, and we don't have LPs. We don't do fundraising. We just convert the cash to Bitcoin, and we hold that reserve on the fund. And that proven to be very robust, very anti-fragile throughout the COVID time. Even increasing in terms of the fiat dollar, right? And that's how we expand our team at Mises Capital. And I think that just the core of how actual companies should run, because you need some sort of um, reserve and believe into something that can make you more anti-fragile, right? And I think Bitcoin, by holding Bitcoin, by hodling Bitcoin, give you that kind of power. You can definitely say no, because you are self-sustained. You don't need anyone to approve you, or you know to give you the access to some sort of circle, right? And I think Bitcoin give you that independent, I would say, sovereign to the company, also sovereign to the individual. And I think that's just incredible, and I see that reflects on the Bitcoin company that I invested in, and I saw it reflect on my own company as well.
So let's talk about like what it's like to invest in Bitcoin companies. You've talked about the grit of the entrepreneurs building Bitcoin companies, the resolve, the anti-fragility of, having to say no to easy money. Like when it comes to investing, like how do you choose between like I'm going to invest in this company, these entrepreneurs versus like I'm going to keep stacking sats? Because it's hard to, look at the
Yeah.
best money in the world at a discount at even what you consider to be very undervalued, not even in a bull market yet, and then go and buy Swan Bitcoin, go and buy Unchained Capital, these great businesses, but it's not Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting question, and that's part of the strategy, um, you know, that we have to implement at Mimesis Capital. Why we invest in the venture capital, right? Why we invest in those startups? Part of the reason is just like we want the whole ecosystem to improve. We wanted to help them out through capital, or through connecting them with the necessary resources that we have. Um, and that's a very rewardable journey, because you can talk about ideas, you can talk about strategy with those companies, you can talk about cooperation opportunity. Like we partner with Onchain on the custody; they are our custody partner, and that's make us, we want to support our partners, right? We want to have a little bit of share in the company, that we can analyze it as a shareholder, um, and make us more comfortable working with them, right? That's just part of the VC investment that we see, and I think it's incredible that the VC. I think Bitcoin VC is also a Bitcoin strategy that can potentially yield more Bitcoin when you invest in it. Um, and also you can collect more information and data from those operations that those Bitcoin company have done, right? You can have know how many users are using on-chain capital, using multi-sig. You can spot some sort of trend in the operation that those companies are doing. Like Swan Bitcoin really started the BCA trend, right? And on-chain capital started multi-sig lending. How are we gonna build a great custody solution with financial layer on top of it, right? and strong Bitcoin is just how you can DCA, right, smoothly, daily, weekly, monthly, even to your IRA, right? I think that's, from looking at the operation, also that kind of reflect back to our company how we can do by making us better. That's part of it. That's a VC strategy that we are implementing within. We are not looking for tremendous gain from all of this. What we are looking for is how we're going to support those companies at the right time when they struggle to fundraise, when they struggle to when they want to survive, how we can provide a sort of capital to them and make sure that we grow together. That I think that just come up part of the community ethos. I deeply want to support the Bitcoin community by supporting the company. That's a part of the the ideas behind the core idea behind VC investment. I think it's never about returning back more money. To me, I don't think so. I think it's more about supporting, understanding the business, understand where the Bitcoin is heading. That to me is very valuable information to gather. So speaking about Bitcoin denominated strategy, I think VC is part of that, right? I think most VC right now, I think successful VC in the future is going to be the one that outperform Bitcoin performance in a long run, like a decade long. I think the real VC will be the one that actually beat the return of the Bitcoin. I think that's super hard, but it's not like impossible. I think Bitcoin just inspire people to do something that sound impossible, right? I think this VC strategy is part of it. How you can find companies that eager and also try their ass off to outperform Bitcoin, and you put a lot of trust in those companies. And entrepreneur itself, like human beings are ambition, right? Some of the human being entrepreneur are ambition, right? Who knows? On-chain capital in the future can outperform Bitcoin return when they go on IPO. Who knows, right? And that's what I found incredible speaking with the Bitcoin entrepreneur, also the VC, like Trimble Venture Partner, that which I'm part of the investor as well. How they looking at the space and how they trying to outperform Bitcoin through the skill set they have. They try to want to prove they are the best of the best, right? And how they going to prove it is outperforming Bitcoin. That's the metrics you want to go against. If you can beat Bitcoin in terms of return, that shows you are the best of the best.
It also helps to hold Bitcoin to outperform Bitcoin, right? And like denominating in Bitcoin in the first place. A lot of VC funds, they think they're trying to outperform Bitcoin. A lot of traders, they think they're trying to outperform Bitcoin, but they don't even use Bitcoin. They don't even denominate in Bitcoin in that process. And it leads them astray, right? Like it's the Bitcoin centricity is necessary. And that, again, that's true. BTC Inc., the Bitcoin Conference, Bitcoin Magazine, UTXO Fund, a Bitcoin denominated fund as well. So, same kind of, Bitcoin aligns incentives. And when I was listening to you talk, it really, it kind of inspired me because a lot of people say, oh, I'm in a Bitcoin world. Like, why will people do anything? People are just going to do nothing because their Bitcoins are just going to go up in value. Why would they ever spend their Bitcoin? Like, why do they do anything? Like, no, Bitcoin actually aligns incentives. Bitcoin makes it like, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it right. You're not going to waste around because the opportunity cost is Bitcoin. And it kind of weeds out the noise. Whereas like our current system, it's like amplifies noise. It's just like amplifies everything, spray and pray, VC investing. It doesn't matter. But like if they have to outperform 21 million,
exactly,
like you really have to create value. Like you can't BS. No lollygagging here.
Yeah. There's no BS, right? And I want to expand on a little bit. What is Bitcoin denominated strategy? You can go from VC to to actually doing it, different strategy. VC is part of it. option, future, whatever there's a tool in the market. But the mindset is, how are you going to outperform 21 million? How are you going to outperform the 200% average return throughout the 12 years of Bitcoin, right? Some people might think that's difficult, right? But there will be people trying, outperforming that kind of return from Bitcoin. And I think a lot of great entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs, were coming out of that to see. And I think that built into the startups that the Bitcoiner have created. Why they want to try to the reason that they are trying to create a company and sacrifice opportunity costs is because there's much gain in that entrepreneurship. You need to build, right? You need to build Citadel. You need to build some sort of route to the Bitcoin network. And those sacrifices being made, and some of them will be rewarded. And I think that's just Bitcoin incentivize, people to try their best of the best, right? Because to outperform Bitcoin is difficult. To outperform fiat is easy, right? If you look at S&P 500, if you look at NASDAQ, Bitcoin outperform all of them. So trying to outperform Bitcoin is very hard, and that just proof of work, right? If you want to try to outperform Bitcoin, you have to put into a lot of work, and that work could be translated into startup. That work can translate it into investment strategy. That work can translate it into, amount of marketing that the Bitcoin Inc. has done, the podcaster has done. We have to make sure a sacrifice to the network in order to grow this network. And there's a lot of approach, right? But ultimately, I think is to outperform Bitcoin, is to treat Bitcoin as the benchmark and outperform it. And I think, in the next decades, if we really think the Bitcoin is going to the 21st century, it's going to be a 21st century dominant crypto network, also the backbone of the financial system. We really need to think about what is the benchmark. The benchmark is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the risk-free rate. And all the financial institution, funds, startups, whatever, is going to collapse onto it. It's going to think in a Bitcoin way. And that's when you have hyper-Bitcoinization happening. And I think hyper-Bitcoinization is real, because in order to outperform Bitcoin, like I say, right, you have to put into a lot of work. You have to go against a lot of current popular thinking. Like the traditional VC versus the Bitcoin VC. That's just an example of it, right? Bitcoin denominated return strategy versus fiat denominated return strategy. That's just another example of it. But if you keep outperforming Bitcoin, you start to see the opportunity costs become widened, right? On the one hand, if you outperform Bitcoin, you are getting a lot more purchasing power over time. You get a lot more return over time, versus fiat, which is devaluing itself at a faster speeds, and it's become faster right now. It just become very easy, and it just become too easy to try to stick with that game, right? People will be comfortable enough to make 1%, 2% on the bond, right? Even negative in the real yield. They are comfortable because the legacy system kind of like saved them, but there's no growth, and there's no future for that as well. So imagine in a hyper Bitcoinization world, what will be the asset management look like? What will be the VC look like? What will be the startup look like? I think that's a thought experiment, and I think that's where the entrepreneur really could shine. And it's not about outperforming fiat anymore. It's about outperforming Bitcoin. So that's why I love about entrepreneur who build on top of Bitcoin. I love about the VC try to invest in a Bitcoin company, and that's why what we build at Mimesis Capital. We want to build something that is native to the Bitcoin world, think about from the first principle of what is Bitcoin, how we're gonna outperform the return using Bitcoin. Yeah, that just, I think it's going to be very exciting. It's very also as well, very challenging. It's more challenging when you start a fiat denominated fund, right? That just less challenging. That's less proof of work. If you do a Bitcoin denominated fund, that is a lot of proof of work.
Yeah, I mean, again, I feel like Bitcoin really aligns incentives, and I feel like we could dive into a lot of these nuances, but this is a fantastic kind of area to close out the show. And I think a great note, which is that, in this on this journey to hyper Bitcoinization, like this is how Bitcoin pulls people out is like if you're trying to outperform Bitcoin, it forces you to change how your brain thinks. And I think that Bitcoin's a mindset. And like the hardest part of this whole transition is the mental mindset of shifting from fiat over to the mentality of Bitcoin. Like using Bitcoin is a mindset. It's an operating system more than anything else. And that, and at the same time, Bitcoin is like a black hole, and it sucks you into that mindset. Like you have no choice. And the later you join, the fewer sats you'll have. But regardless, it's going to make you better because like you can't BS anymore. No more easy money. Like everything requires proof of work with Bitcoin. That's the only way to acquire Bitcoin, is to provide something of value to someone else who willingly gives you their Bitcoin. So it really is a beautiful incentive structure. Louis, thank you so much for coming on the show. I want to give you a chance to, kind of give a last word to the Bitcoin Magazine audience.
I think Bitcoin's really the operating system, like you say, right? That we all are changing our mind towards it. I think you guys, Bitcoin Magazine, you've done a great job on reporting this aspect, what's happening, in Bitcoin, around Bitcoin. If we continue to do that, I think you guys are operating one of the best Bitcoin media out there. Continue to do that, continue to focus on it. It's really a pleasure to see all this been growing in the past, several years. Your audience is growing, and people are reading a lot about Bitcoin. I think that's just incredible. Yeah, and just follow us on, Mimesis Capital Twitter. Follow me, Louis Liu, on Twitter. You can also looking at our website. Our website, we have done incredible research on Bitcoin. All of the research that is pretty much long-term focused. We're not trying to talk too much about fiat price. All we are talking about is the Bitcoin world that we are about to transition into. What is the wealth preservation? How are we going to use Bitcoin as a tool to preserve your wealth? How are we going to use Bitcoin as a tool to kind of like switch your mindset in order to experience more interesting, companies and strategy, and also art, right? And I think it's really incredible that we can build this at Mimesis Capital, because we are self-sustained. We don't need to ask, other people's money, and we can build this out. And this is a fortunate thing, and that's pretty hard to do. And I think we will be sticking around in this Bitcoin world for quite some time, maybe a century, 2 century. That's my idea. I think this is a long-lasting company, and we will strive to help this company survive over a long time. And I think Bitcoin can enable us to do that. Yeah, and imagine if you have this kind of mindset built into, it's just really incredible. And I wish everyone can think in this way. And there's a lot to be built as well in the Bitcoin space. Yeah, that's just my words. I think that is hope that helpful.
Yeah, man. I mean, again, beautiful words. I feel like your perspective on Bitcoin is poetic and very principled. So I really appreciate you coming onto the podcast. Everyone, you need to follow Lewis. You need to follow Mimesis Capital. Your research on Contango taught me about the subject when it was really hot this past winter. And a lot of the fantastic research that you've published on your blog, we've also published on Bitcoin Magazine, just because we're trying to get it out in the world. It's that good. So, obviously Lewis is a tastemaker here when it comes to what's happening in Bitcoin and the Bitcoin investment scene. So make sure to give him a follow, and make sure to give me a follow at CK_Snarks. Make sure to check out Bitcoin Magazine for more amazing, interesting interviews, thoughts on Bitcoin, news, research, and much, much more. And until then, peace.
All right, thank you, CK.